And the winner is.
And the Grammy goes to 21 Pilots.
Ah yes, it's Lavish, our allocated meme song for this era that the Pilots are legally obligated to give us each album. It's hip, it's cool, it's...
Whatever. Deal with it. Louder for the people in the back. In it?
But arguably, it also holds a very important message, one that pertains to one of the more prominent themes of this album, explored in the Craving and Backslide. The message relates to fame. Before we start, I would like to give my usual disclaimer that this is my interpretation of the song. I'm not in any way implying my interpretation is the only one or the correct one, and I highly encourage you to seek your own meaning and discuss it in the comments. I know I've said this about a few songs already when analysing the lyrics, but Lavish really is lyrically odd. It's the least 21 Pilots song the band have ever produced, and this notion isn't even subjective. Many reviews and opinions of Lavish repeat the same thing. The lyrics are vapid, arrogant, and pretentious. To be completely honest, they aren't wrong. For a band known for their humility, the lyrics of Lavish are a complete 180 as to how the band often present themselves. But that's entirely the point. Despite being an incredibly memeable song, Lavish is a very important exploration and criticism on the toxicity of fame within the music industry. The lyrics take on this satirical approach in order to convey criticism and exploration to the theme's many facets, with Tyler playing the role lyrically of a self-centered, up-your-own-ass rock star. This not only mocks those who abuse their success, but also reveals several truths about how fame impacts artists, fans, and the industry around them. This approach is particularly exemplified with the structure of the song itself. Firstly, the lyrics utilize an irregular rhyme scheme to give the song less of a lyrical or poetic feel and more of a conversational feel, as if this is the artist talking with us about their genuine thoughts. Thoughts that inevitably come across as shallow or insulting. This is assisted by the usage of first and second person pronouns. It reinforces the conversational structure to mock the arrogance of vain artists, but also attempts to get the viewer to engage with ideas critically by making you feel personally involved with the second person pronoun of you. You are on the receiving end of the conversation with this conceited pop star. You are the subject of his insults, his gloating, and his lack of care. The lyrical structure not only encourages listeners to mock the caricature Tyler is playing with the conversational structure, but it also actively highlights how fans are part of this toxic relationship with fame, and encourages them to criticize both artists and the nature of fame itself, all through the use of second-person pronouns. Moreover, to double down on the point that the purpose of this song is satire and mockery, the lyrics are incredibly blunt and nonsensical, as if no effort has been put into them. I say whatever and whatever that I want is the biggest example of a nonsense lyric, as the repetition doesn't add anything to the line. He is quite literally just saying whatever twice because he doesn't want to put effort into songwriting. This idea is also mimicked similarly in the actual composition of the song. The chords are simple and repeated, the rhythm is monotonous, the rhyme scheme is irregular, it lacks instrumental decoration, and there are barely any changes sonically throughout the period of the song. This is meant to mimic typical pop songs on the radio, and it mocks most of those mainstream artists that chase after fame instead of putting effort into their craft. Going forward, I would just like to add as a note that for general purposes, anytime I refer to the artist or Tyler, I'm not referring to Tyler himself, but rather this pop star caricature he is playing and criticizing. Please keep that in mind when watching, it's going to save you a lot of confusion. Let's get into the actual message and lyrical content of the song, not just the purpose behind Lavish. Lyrically, it first displays this pursuit of fame and the obsession over success. And it really is no exaggeration that it does this first. The title of the song, Lavish, is an adjective used to describe something as luxurious or extremely rich. It could also mean to have a lot of something. Not only does this show that the artist is only focusing on fame, wealth, and just materialism in general by the fact that the song is titled Lavish, the song is consequently defined by luxury, wealth, and abundance, but also by the fact that the word is repeated several times in the chorus and throughout the song. The etymology of the word also reinforces this point. Lavish derives from the French word lavish, which means a deluge or flood of rain. It not only alludes to the idiom of letting money rain, but it also reinforces that the artist is flooded, consumed by this focus on success in the form of fame. The lyric of From the Floor to the Ceiling also illustrates this idea. Simply put, the lyric just translates to the lavish way of living being everywhere. It's on the floor, it's in front of you, it's on the ceiling. It has consumed him. Not only that, but the floor to the ceiling is an upwards motion, a motion or symbol commonly associated with success, not just in literature, but even in economics as well. It just doubles down on the fact that not only is this life of luxury consuming him as it's everywhere, but that he's so obsessed with this pursuit that the notion of success is constantly emphasized within his words. It isn't just consuming his physical space, but it has also consumed his internal, mental space. It's all he can think about. Keep the mood androgynous more shows the methods that the artist will use to continue pursuing fame. Androgynous means gender neutral, and so the artist wants the mood to be gender neutral. This implies that they want to seem appealing to everyone rather than limiting their fan base to one specific demographic so that they can continue pursuing fame by growing their fan base. Apart from standout lyrics, there are also a plethora of structural techniques that convey this pursuit of fame or the obsession over it. There's a semantic field of materialism and wealth, byproducts of fame, littered throughout the lyrics. Lavish, style, shine, penny loafer, which are shoes associated with wealth and power, Dom Perignon, which is an expensive vintage wine, and payroll. The structure is intentionally emphasizing that this is the only thing that the artist cares about and focuses on, given that it's everywhere. Penny loafers as well provide a bit more evidence for this point just by being associated with ideas of materialism in fashion. For example, the shoe has the name penny in it, which in itself reinforces that notion of wealth further. There are also a lot of plosives in the lyrics as well. Try your best to look like this is not your first time. You brought the right equipment to put on a show. It's just the beginning. Sip a Capri Sun like it's Dom Perignon. I see your problem is your proctologist, and so on. The purpose of plosives is to elevate the words pronounced and purposefully draw attention to them. It's associated with being loud. This, as a result, gives the artist a bolder, bigger lyrical presence that immediately draws your attention to him. He's purposefully doing this to get your attention, showing his obsession with being famous. Enjambment achieves a similar effect. It keeps the lyrics going. It illustrates that he is trying to use up all the time he has to keep speaking. He wants the attention from others so badly that he's even creating a breathless quality with enjambment because he wants to use up all that screen time he can get to promote himself and say what he wants. These aren't the only two methods that achieve the effect of emphasizing Tyler's presence, so you kind of have no choice but to pay attention to him. As already discussed, the song utilizes first and second person pronouns, with Tyler referring to himself with I constantly throughout the second verse. This is all about him, and he wants you to give him your undivided attention. Lavish then goes on to show how this obsession over fame becomes toxic, and this toxicity in turn influences artists. This is where we see a lot of the criticism and mockery come into play regarding the caricature Tyler is playing. It mainly details two ways that fame influences artists to become toxic. It makes them arrogant, and it makes them disingenuous. Many of these lyrics are quite insulting to the listener, whether directly or passively. For example, Welcome to the New Way of Living, it's just the beginning of Lavish, seems innocent initially. However, the usage of welcome means that the artist is welcoming the listener to luxury, as if he is used to the lifestyle and you aren't. It's insulting, as it ultimately implies that the listener is not wealthy, and has not or will never know what a luxurious lifestyle is like. It's also arrogant. The artist is bragging about this life he has and is almost showing it off to the listener. Welcoming someone also has connotations of physically introducing people to a place that the host is familiar with. This is then accompanied by the use of new and beginning. Both words are descriptors for something that has just started, or something that is novel, further illustrating the artist's arrogance as it depicts how the lavish lifestyle is new to listeners, because it hasn't existed until he came along. You haven't experienced this new way of living luxuriously because the artist is the only one who has lived this way and can show you it. The other insult we see, also placed within the chorus, is a bit more direct. Welcome to the style you haven't seen in a while. The usage of second-person pronouns directs this comment towards the listener. This is style you do not have, given by the fact you haven't seen it in a while. You don't own the style, you can only view it. The style only becomes present in your life when Tyler makes an appearance. Again, it has that same arrogance of the artist having this superiority complex, believing they are better than others, and they are the only one that can educate listeners on what true style is like. Aside from insults, the final verse continues exposing the artist's arrogance. Towards the end, Tyler states NDAs for the folks that talk to me. An NDA, also known as a non-disclosure agreement, is a form of enforceable contract that legally prevents ideas, conversations, or even conflict from being spoken about or shared by third parties. Doing so can result in a civil claim where the complainant sues for a large sum of money. And suddenly, this is reminding me of my contract law coursework. Regardless, this suggests that Tyler believes his words are so important that anybody who talks to him must sign this hefty legal document to never repeat them. Finally, much like the use of plosives, Lavish also uses a lot of sibilants in lyrics, like it's lavish, let it show, shine, big flex, complex, and much more. As always, sibilance creates a flowing quality to a piece of literature, which in this case presents two ideas. One, that Tyler genuinely believes what he is saying, so much so that it doesn't need any effort to formulate, and two, that he lives a relaxed life. The second interpretation reaffirms this arrogance, as it shows he really doesn't care about other people or actual issues. He's too busy living this lavish life. As for Tame making artists disingenuous, there are two key lyrics that back this idea up. Firstly, in verse 1, we have looking real nice, smelling like worth. Firstly, the comment does seem a bit like a compliment, given that the artist is calling the listener's style or looks as nice. However, this is only the surface view when taking the rest of the lyric into account. Associating the listener with only aesthetic characteristics such as their style and scent actually seems incredibly uncaring and shallow, displaying that disingenuous nature. Furthermore, worth is often associated as a metric to define objects with a monetary value, showing that the artist only sees their fans as a form of currency they can profit from. We then have I see the problem is your proctologist got both hands on your shoulders while you're bottomless. The infamous line that has arguably defined this song. First, a proctologist is someone who inspects rectums, or in more cruder terms, the area where human waste is discharged from the body. They're a trusted medical professional that specializes in that specific area. This lyric translates to that trusted professional essentially not doing their job properly, hence why they're the problem. If they have hands on your shoulders, it means they aren't actually assessing the issue you have consulted them for. This actually reflects the relationship fans have with disingenuous artists fueled by their desire for fame. Much like an incompetent proctologist who abuses your trust and just wants your money, something that would never happen in the UK with public health, fans pay for an artist they trust, and for the music they produce to help them through or solve their internal problems. But a disingenuous artist will never actually solve the problem. Instead, they will keep exploiting their fans for fame and money. Another connotation of the line that backs this interpretation up is the fact that this line also doubles as a sexual innuendo. The artist takes the role of the proctologist once again, and is quite literally screwing over their fans by abusing their trust to profit from them, once again proving that the caricature Tyler plays is disingenuous. The song doesn't merely focus on how toxic fame can be to artists, however. Lavish also criticises how the relationship between fame and the music industry also corrupts fans. A lot of this is detailed in the first verse. It starts with "try your best to look like this is not your first time." The fact you, the listener, needs to exert the effort, hence try your best, to look like you aren't new to what looking at lyrics later on seems like a concert, presents the idea of being new to a fan base as a negative thing. This is actually a callback to some of the comments that started circulating after Blurryface and Heathens, when veterans of the fan base made comments regarding true fans. You weren't a true fan if Stressed Out was your favourite song. You weren't a true fan if you joined the fan base because of Heathens. This is behaviour that hasn't necessarily halted, and actually reared its head more prominently during the Psy era. With the album having a more pop, hip-hop influence, there was once again an influx of those comments regarding the status of fans if they joined because of Skeld and IC, or liked Skeld and IC. This superiority complex in older fans who found the artist first is displayed here as a byproduct of fame. When an artist gets big, older fans parade their history in the fan base as a badge of honour over other, newer fans, which not only in itself is arrogant, but is highly toxic behaviour. This criticism is actually continued in the line "walk in like you deserve it," in regards to the front row of concerts. To deserve something implies you must do something to earn it, again illustrating ideas of policing those with the status of fake fans needing to earn their way to the front row, an area reserved by true fans of an artist. There are other ways fame negatively impacts fans. One of the lines asserts that the listener is fighting for the front row. As we've already established, the front row likely refers to the front row of a concert venue. Fighting means to engage in a violent battle. To battle with other fans for the front row in a concert shows how self-centered and toxic the fan base is, prioritizing parasocial connections with a famous artist over the well-being of other fans in order to gain some sort of status or self-esteem from the interaction. They're actively harming other people they should care for just to feel special. This connotation helps to connect and translate the first verse as a whole. The fans are fighting for the front row, and the artists do not care, only thinking of their monetary worth. And if, after fighting, a fan's feet are hurting from fighting too much, that's when they know they have everything available to put on a show. It's important to note that it's the fan, or the listener, that is putting on a show, given the fact that the lyric is "you brought the right equipment to put on a show," rather than Tyler using first-person pronouns to refer to himself. A show can be a colloquialism. It's the slang term used for a show of emotions, a public display of emotions. This is reinforced by the lyric following it: "Let it flow, let it show, shine." Tears flow and show when caught in the light. If you don't get what you want, you can exploit your emotions and cry to get what you want. There are other interpretations of this lyric that further highlight this notion of fans becoming selfish. The adjective shine has allusions of both fame and wealth in itself. Money is associated with being shiny, while it can also refer to the shine of a spotlight. This brings forth further ideas of fans being focused on attention from artists. Emotions are a currency to be used and exploited, hence why the tears shine, as it allows them to get what they want. And you will shine under the spotlight of the famous artist's attention if you let the emotions flow. It's like a vicious cycle. Artists are focused on fame, so they exploit their fans for attention and wealth. In the meantime, the fan base mimics that self-serving behaviour and focuses on getting attention from famous artists, so they exploit their emotions for validation and an ego boost. Finally, the proctologist line once again provides a new interpretation that acts as evidence for fame corrupting fans. As aforementioned, proctologists often look at the rectum to check that everything is healthy. However, they clearly aren't doing their job properly given that Tyler notes there is a problem. This could imply that toxic fans are full of shit, as the proctologist, which is a representation of the artist, is not checking where they should be, rather just allowing the problem to continue so they can profit. The analysis does not end there, however. In true Clancy style, Lavish also explores how fame can be used as a coping mechanism for one's own insecurities and fears. And as seen in Backslide, Vignette, and Routines, Lavish details how this coping mechanism is unhealthy, as it exposes how using fame to cope can lead to a loss of authenticity. There is a very strong fear of irrelevancy pervaded in the lyrics. Welcome to the style you haven't seen in a while. In a while implies there was style before, but it went out of fashion. It existed before, died, and came back. It conveys this idea that attention and fame are fleeting. Meanwhile, whilst penny loafers are associated with luxury and elegance, they aren't the most stable form of footwear. Given penny loafers represent wealth, it can imply that wealth itself isn't a stable thing. Coming in hot is an idiom that means to be fast, but eventually speed comes to a halt and heat fizzles out to form a neutral temperature. It isn't constant, just like Tyler's position. All in all, we get this theme of materialism not being constant, which could explain why this caricature pursues them. They're aware fame and success is not perpetual, hence why they keep pursuing it for as long as possible to avoid irrelevancy. Aside from this, the rest of the second verse details how this caricature of arrogance, wealth, and fame is just a facade to cover up for Tyler's insecurities. Linoleum is a type of flooring that is typically associated with luxury. However, it can also be associated with cheapness and poverty depending on the context it's used for. A Napoleon complex is an actual condition wherein certain forms of behaviour are used to compensate for one's shortcomings, much like the actual general's harsh behaviour being to compensate for his short stature. As discussed earlier, Dom Perignon is an expensive vintage wine. However, it's compared to a Capri Sun, which is typically a cheap beverage. It's this idea of pretending to be something that you physically aren't. Tyler is pretending to be this idea of a successful, famous celebrity to mask his own flaws and fears. Everything you see, from the arrogance to the lack of care, is a facade. Other lyrics provide evidence for this. The NDA implies that Tyler actually fears people knowing who he actually is. His flaws are sensitive information, hence why he legally forces them to stay silent. All of this is a facade used to try and hide what the artist hates most about themselves and fears. The caricature Tyler is playing has abandoned his authenticity as a person, who he truly is, to gain validation from simply being a famous musician, a pop star. Chasing these concepts of fame and success is the only way he feels stable, but doing so is a punishing cycle, because it simply won't last, nor will it eradicate your flaws. As stated in the second verse, it's just hot-shot hypocrisy. So, to summarise, because this was quite a lengthy lyrical analysis, Lavish details the obsessional pursuit of fame and its negative consequences on both artists and fans. It's not only critical of fame, artists and toxic fans, but it's weirdly sympathetic in a way, acknowledging how this is all just a vicious cycle perpetuated by the music industry and the nature of fame itself. Upon first glance, the music video seems very simple, or even unrelated to the critical nature of the song. It's just the boys goofing off and having fun. However, if you scratch beneath the surface, there are actually two ways the MV adds to or emphasizes the message in the song. Firstly, it highlights that pursuit of fame and success, how artists will often focus on it and abuse it once they have it, showing off and becoming incredibly arrogant. The MV bombards you with constant imagery of materialism. Tyler and Josh are in a limousine, they're wearing sunglasses and suits, the suits potentially being a reference to the suits they wore during the Grammys, and they're showing off different businesses, shops often being associated with consumerism and materialism. Secondly, the silly nature of the music video actually adds as evidence to the last point I made in the language analysis. Artists often use fame to cover up their own flaws and insecurities. This silly music video acts as a cover-up of the in-depth criticism and exploration the lyrics follow. It doesn't seem to say anything serious, and it distracts you from the fact that Lavish actually has a very prominent and important message to talk about. And that's it for the Lavish analysis. God knows it has taken me too long. Lavish has been catching stray shots from other videos left, right and centre, because first I pushed this back for the Simone Weil theory, And then secondly, I fell ill. And then thirdly, whilst I was writing the script, everything happened regarding the torchbearer letter and all of that. So I feel sorry for Lavish. The world has stopped me time and time again from actually finishing this script. I'm also glad that this doesn't actually seem to be my longest analysis video like I feared, because if it had been, I would have deactivated my YouTube account, because there is no way the Proctologist song becomes not only my longest script ever, but my longest analysis ever. Either way, I hope you enjoyed watching, I hope you found this fun, and thank you for watching Top Debate!